Patent
that's
pending.
That's a patent pen. That's a Brad original right there. Robots baking. All right, yeah. Sorry, I just spoiled it too. I think I just gave it away.
Yeah, well,
No.
Now it's open source.
Robots don't bake. Don't be silly,
that'd be
Greg.
crazy. Nobody would do that.
A robot bake-off. Yeah. Yeah, this is a good idea. I think you could come up with this. I think we could roll with that. That could be our new episode here at Digital Trends.
It'd be great for reviewing ovens here too, because you'd have like a perfectly consistent, bake
Yeah.
every time. You'd never have to worry about any human error introducing factors there.
Yeah, and then just robots throwing dough at the wall, and
Sometimes.
yeah, going haywire. All right. Okay, it looks like we're coming in live here now. So, hello everyone. This is Close to the Metal. This is our computing podcast that we broadcast once a week here at Digital Trends, where we go in depth with specific computing topics. We broadcast live on YouTube and Facebook, and then also, of course, available as an audio podcast afterward. And today, we are going to be talking about the Windows 10 Creators Update, which has rolled out for some of you. It's going to be rolling out for everybody, whether you like it or not, as Matt told me just a minute ago.
Like it or not.
Like it or not, you're
You will
getting
get
it.
the Creators Update.
And so we're going to be talking about that and everything that we've seen so far, the updates that we like, that we don't like. We want you to be involved as well. So if you're watching, please feel free to drop in there on the comments and on YouTube and Facebook, and I'll grab those as we go through, and make sure you become part of the show. If you have questions, drop those in there. I think our main question was whether or not you've tried Paint 3D. Yes, Paint is still a thing, so make sure that you're aware of that before we go too far. I'm Greg Nibbler. Let's introduce our usual hosts here.
I'm Brad Burke.
I'm Matt Smith.
Matt Smith, whether you like it or not, you're getting it. You're getting Windows. So let's talk about this. I'm sorry, I'm stuck on that thing. It says whether you like it or not. That's got to be the new marketing campaign. Then you've got to lead that campaign.
I have to lead that campaign?
I don't know, just something.
I didn't think that was a
maybe not
something I was volunteering
Okay,
for,
maybe you
but
can just write it for somebody, whether you like it or not.
it was really hard
Windows.
to write.
It took a lot of hours, a lot of different things that went on with that. All right. Let's talk about this. So the Creators Update has rolled out for people who are signed up for the early adopter update.
Yeah, if you're an insider already, so
Insider.
you can sign up for that like in your settings.
If you're an insider.
If you're an insider.
If you're a Windows 10 hipster.
then you already know about this. Sorry. Yeah, my favorite hits were MS Paint. So anyway, the updates have rolled out for that. And, we're all going to be getting, I think Microsoft said that the rollouts are going to come for everybody starting April 11th.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Slowly rolling out.
April 11th is the big day.
Where you'll be forced to get these updates, whether you like it or not. And let's kind of go through what we've seen so far. And again, since we are live, we do want to know if you've tried it yet, if there's some things specifically that you've seen. We're going to go through kind of step by step and talk about the main updates that they've brought, whether they're good, whether they're bad. Why don't we start off right off the bat, though, with Microsoft Edge. So Microsoft Edge, they have really made a big push for this over the last few years.
They're sharpening their edge. They're honing their edge to a precision.
There it is. So
yes.
So all right,
so
Matt.
Sharp.
Let's talk about Microsoft Edge and who out there is using Edge right now. I'm sorry, I use Google Chrome.
Crickets chirping.
Crickets. Yeah, and so they're still trying. So what have they brought out to try to get people to adopt and try to switch to Edge? What's the new rollout with this?
Well, there's a few things mostly related to tabs.
Okay.
They've got two big tab management features. One is that there's a little drop down at the top where all the tabs are located that if you click it, you can see a thumbnail preview of all your open tabs, which is nice.
Cool.
So if you were like, oh, I don't know, like I've got 20 tabs open, I don't remember what they all are, you can just click that and see what's up. And also you can now save your tabs as sessions. I think the technical term they're using is sessions.
Okay.
So you save it as a session.
All right.
And then it's over in the right side of your screen, and you want to go back to that.
To that session.
You can go back and pick all those tabs out. So that's handy if you have a bunch of tabs that you do often. I think a lot of people probably do that. They probably have their 5 or 6 main web pages they want to go to when they get up in the morning. Yeah. You can just save that, and then you click that session when you get up, and it all pops up automatically, which is nice.
Yeah,
and so those are the tab features.
Okay, and that's the big thing.
Yeah,
that's the big thing with Edge.
Well, those are big things. Brad, what do you think? Do those sound like things you would use?
I mean, yeah, I think that's like a pretty handy feature, I guess. I mean, I do something similar in Chrome just by like having that window and then making sure to close it last. But like,
I think that's sort of the thing.
Cleaner way to do it, maybe.
There are some ways that other browsers kind of do similar things, and of course, there's always extensions too,
right?
Which can oftentimes add this to Chrome or Firefox or Vivaldi if you are, really deep into the browser scene. But it's nice to have it there automatically for Edge. I think that. Since it's the default browser, it's nice that if someone doesn't really know any better, they could have these cool features. They also added some, and we didn't really go into this in the review because I thought it was sort of not as interesting, but they added some book features. So you actually can. So Edge is kind of promoting itself as being a reader tool. Like it can open PDFs and does that pretty well. A lot of browsers can do that, but Edge is saying Edge is like promoting it's like we're very quick when browsing through documents.
Okay.
And now also it's connected into the Windows ebook store, so you can actually buy books and then read them in Edge.
Okay.
Which is, it's if you have a touchscreen Windows device, that's actually probably kind of nice.
Right. That's a good bonus.
It's something that's similar to how you get a book on your Apple iPad or your Chrome device.
Taking a look at the live chat, comments come in. I'll make sure to get these in here. George says all they're doing is beta testing ideas for Chrome to adopt. That's what he's saying. Do you think that's it?
Well, I think Chrome has already got some of those ideas.
So they're just taking.
The thing about Chrome is like right now, it has a nice feature where if you close your browser, you open it back up, the tabs will be back there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like a similar thing. And of course, like I said, extensions, you can always add that sort of functionality in.
That's true. Okay.
Yeah, I think the big part of this is that like speed and stability were already pretty strong points for Edge, but at the cost of like a really lack of a feature set. Like we saw, I always kind of joke about right after Windows 10 came out, an update came out for Edge that added the ability to move tabs to a new window. And I sort of had this moment, you couldn't do that already? Like this browser's been out for months.
Right.
And so, they're kind of slowly trying to bring it up to what people use, finding out what people use. And I do think, one thing that we've seen from Windows 10 more so than older Windows platforms is that Microsoft is really willing to A/B test things like you're saying and then listen to what happens, watch the results, and especially with insiders, see how things go and whether they like them and whether they get implemented into the final workflow. And this is a really good chance for them to take some features that have maybe been tossed around and played with in insider builds and say, like, this is what people are using.
Yeah, so, and then adopt from there.
Yeah. It's easy to make fun of Edge, right? Like, it's always been easy to make fun of the Microsoft browser. Yeah. Because it's never been very good.
Well, we've had Explorer for so long.
Right.
That's still all in our memories,
But I think it is worth mentioning that Edge at this point is actually pretty decent. Probably more decent than any Microsoft browser has ever been. It's sort of ironic because... at this point, I think most people know, you're supposed to get another browser. Like, it took years for that to sink in, right?
Yeah.
So we finally got to the point where most people seem to know, hey, you want to download another browser. And that just so happens to be the point at which Microsoft has delivered a pretty decent browser. So, probably in 10 years, people will start using Edge again. And then, I don't know, it'll be bad by then. And then the cycle will continue of, the general knowledge just being way behind. What's going on. So
they are doomed to repeat this forever. That's
I don't know. But it's fine. If you use Chrome, Edge is not. There's nothing here that's going to make you go switch to Edge really. But if if someone loads up their computer and they're like, I don't know, I'm just going to use Edge. Like that's cool. Like they're not really at any disadvantage for doing that.
Okay. So, and again, just for those of you joining in, we're doing a review of the Windows 10 Creators Update, which is something, as Matt said, you're all going to get eventually, whether you like it or not. But right now, we've already had it, and just going through some of the different features that are coming out with this and what to expect. Talking about Microsoft Edge, so just kind of to sum it up, new tab sessions so that you can...
Tabs.
That's
you can
the
keep
main
tabs
thing.
On your tabs.
All the tabs you've ever wanted, you can use for Microsoft Edge. And all right, let's go on to some of the other things, some of the other updates that we've seen. So game mode. This is something we talked about a while ago about what we were anticipating with it. Yeah. And now, Brad, have you had a chance to try this out?
Yeah, we've done a bit of Jace Wagner, one of our staff writers, did a bit of testing on this. And basically, the thing about these game optimizing things, they've been around forever. You can buy them on Steam. You can pay $20 to basically have an app automatically go set some priorities in the back of your system. Absolutely don't do it. Don't download anything that wants to clean your PC or anything like that. It's just snake oil. Microsoft actually has the opportunity here, though, to possibly do this, to reduce Windows OS and UI overhead at a very basic level, and to help your system not be dealing with extra things when it's trying to just run a game and run it well. They didn't. Long story short, average frame rates, we didn't see any change at all.
Yeah.
Well within the margin of error, 1 frame per second kind of up and down changes.
And we tested it on a few different systems. We tested it on a laptop that's like a low-end gaming laptop with a, I think it was an entry-level quad-core, like a Core i5 quad, and a GTX 1050. So that's kind of, or it might have been 1050 Ti, but that's kind of like the base level of, like, if you're a gamer.
Yeah, that's nothing too.
That's sort of like the base level of what you might buy. We also tested it on our big test rig that has a 10-core Intel processor and what was the video card? I think a 1060.
1060, and then
it was installed in at the time.
Yeah, and then a 1700 Ryzen 7 1700.
Yeah, we did Ryzen
with a 980 Ti.
So none of it really showed much difference, and it's kind of like I had the opportunity to talk to Microsoft about this at one of their events, and the guy was like so passionate about gaming, and he's like, yeah, like we're trying to do this, that, and the other, and it didn't really come to anything.
Nothing. None of that. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think that the truth of the matter is that for a lot of systems, your CPU optimization and your RAM optimization doesn't really matter much for games.
Yeah.
It's already fine. Most games don't use that much RAM. Might use a lot of video memory, but they don't use that much RAM.
Right.
And they don't use, your GPU resources are already going to be allocated maximally to the game. So whatever optimization there is probably going to be pretty minimal. Your processor resources, again, are probably already going to be allocated towards the game. Maybe this would help if you, didn't realize that it was a bad idea to encode videos in the background while playing a game. But, otherwise, you're probably not going to have anything that's very CPU intensive running in the background.
The only thing would be streaming, if you're trying to stream and record. Yeah, but even that doesn't use nearly enough CPU. And, in this case, you might run into, we haven't tested it, but you might run into issues with under-encoding or over-encoding because of your lack of CPU resources, because Windows is saying, no, stop what you're doing, don't do that. You might run into issues there. You say, no, you're trying to game, don't worry about this,
I mean, in theory, it's something that could work in certain situations. The problem is, what exactly is the situation?
Yeah.
We have actually tested game mode twice now, because we tested it first when it first came out with, a stable of laptops, and then we retested it for the Creators Update with a laptop and 2 higher-end desktop rigs to try and get a broader range of results. And so far, we haven't been able to do any tests that shows much of a change.
Really?
So the other thing about game mode right now is you have to enable it in the settings, and then you have to also enable it in the game, and it only is supported for some games. So
that's a whole nother.
So that's going to be a problem.
At that point,
it's not.
If you're that much of a gamer, you already have a system that's optimized for exactly what you want anyway. So is this really going to give you that boost?
Yeah, it's not like you're going to flip a switch or install the Creators Update and 10% performance in my games. That's awesome.
Well, and then that's, I think, the dream that the game modes on Steam and stuff kind of sell people, which is sort of the scam, which is the dream that, you're going to download some software and all of a sudden your machine that can't handle a game plays it smoothly. Sorry, not going to happen. It just doesn't work that way. There's not some huge oversight in the game that this software is this one weird trick's gonna fix. It's not gonna work that way. What does work pretty well is the game streaming feature that is built into Windows 10. And it's Beam Streaming. Do I have the name of the service right? It's not like Beam.tv or Beam.str.
I think it's called
Beam.
Okay, it might be, but.
And so this is for streaming games right now. So from what I understand, it's kind of like Twitch. Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's like Twitch or YouTube
Microsoft's
Gaming. It's anything
Twitch,
like that. It's just their version of it.
Okay.
I think they bought it actually mid last year.
From some. Okay.
And I think the draw there, we're talking about this, is that it's really, really low latency. So you sort of like you can stream and it's almost instant, streaming out to people, which is not that big of a draw. I mean, like Twitch is only, like 5 to 10 seconds behind usually, which is not detrimental.
I mean, that marketing pitch I think is kind of weak. That's probably the reason they so quickly got purchased by Microsoft for not as much money as Twitch got purchased by Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
But Beam's really not that popular of a platform.
Yeah.
You go look at the number of people watching things on Beam compared to Twitch. It's way, way smaller. It's like a tiny fraction.
Right.
But, that's not really what's the point, I guess. The point is that you can now press a few buttons in Windows and you can stream your game, and you can do it without much of a performance impact that we could see. And it doesn't require any special setup really, other than you have to have a webcam, which if you're using a laptop, was probably already in there. So it's really easy to use, and it does in fact, do what's advertised. So if you just want to stream something real quick and you want to be like, hey, like send something a message to your friend, being like, hey, watch my stream,
one other
post
friend
on
that's
your
on
Facebook,
Okay,
and be like, hey, watch my stream real quick. That's fine. It seems to work pretty well.
Which, just FYI, Steam does the same thing. Their streaming is built into. So if you're playing any Steam game, you can hit broadcast and broadcast it right into Steam and invite your friends on your Steam account and social links.
That is, again, going to be a limitation of the streaming for Windows 10 is that it does work quite well, but it does depend on the game bar support. And game bar is that bar that shows up, you press Windows NG in a game. Get that keyboard shortcut. That's how they control game mode and the streaming and the DVR features that have been in Windows 10 for a while. And most modern AAA titles in particular are going to support that.
Sometimes other apps do. Sometimes other apps get caught up in it, and you'll open up like benchmarking software, and it'll be like, "Oh, is this a game? Did you want me to?"
It's like, no, it's not a game. Lay off, lay off Windows. But you do require that support. So it's kind of a minor feature, I guess, but it does work, and I think it'll be useful for some people.
Okay.
It'll get more useful probably as time goes on, because more and more games are going to support the modern APIs that are required to use the game bar.
But are people really going to be using Beam, though, at that point?
So that's kind of hopefully, I think, a bigger change, would be to
Well, you're not going to... I mean, the thing is, like, you're not going to probably use it to be a professional streamer.
Yeah.
But if you want to do it casually...
Just want to send something to your buddy really quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, Beam might be the thing. All right, so again, talking about the updates to the Windows 10, the Creators Update that's out, that's eventually going to roll out to everybody, and going through the different things, talking about Microsoft Edge, talking about game mode, and the streaming ideas that they have with that, or the streaming possibilities with Beam. Let's get into the one that's kind of the main question we have on Facebook. Paint, MS Paint. Paint is still around, but now it is Paint 3D.
Yes.
Paint 3D.
So I think
And yeah, that was our question. Is just curious if anybody's tried it yet. So, Brad, tell us about Paint 3D.
So they kind of pitched Paint 3D at the events as being this...
As what you see on the screen right now, if you're tuning into the live stream, this is how they pitched it.
Yeah, they've got like, kids like playing with like models in like a little diary. It almost looks like, the 3D modeling equivalent of a like cardboard and clay diorama, which is a neat idea. I think that's like there's a lot of promise there, and you can be like, oh, this is easy to use, it's fun, with a touchscreen especially.
Yep.
That said, when you actually get in there, there's some real oddities to the way this application works. And I think the most kind of standout feature to me as someone who's played with SketchUp and Blender and done 3D printing and stuff was that you can't edit except from front on.
So you can't rotate it, and
you can rotate and look at it. You can spin the object around with your mouse, and you can kind of switch to what they call perspective mode and look at all sides of it. Mm-hmm. But as soon as you click the pen tool or the paint tool or the sticker tool or anything, it immediately snaps back to a front-on view, like a two-dimensional, like sort of perspective-shifted view.
Okay.
Which means that in order to actually edit things, you're sort of pulling objects out and painting them and then rotating them correctly and painting them and putting them back into your little diorama, which is sort of a pain. Yeah. And especially when you want to start, doing more complex things, you have to take an object and weld it to another object by saving it and exporting it as its own file and then importing it back into another project.
Oh, you can't do it within the...
You you can't join them together. Oh. So if you wanted to, make a little town and have a bunch of little houses, you could either lay each piece kind of one by one into them, or you could make a house and then paint it and then export it and then re-import it into your your big town file and put that house there.
Okay.
And so it's just a really tedious workflow as you, I want to make a pirate ship, and it's like, well, I'll make part of the whole, and now that I've got that just right, I'll take it out and then put it in a new project and work on it again.
Okay. All right. So you end up having to have a whole bunch of files.
Right. And just, between that and the perspective weirdness, it's really hard to get a sense for a lot of things about this. You have a really limited tool set, so you can kind of draw a couple of pre-built shapes, or you can draw like a line or a design of some sort, and it'll just make sort of an arbitrarily deep extruded piece from it. So just it's really awkward set of tools. It's really hard to work in the 3D space, especially something like SketchUp is really, it looks kind of intimidating. But the nice thing about it is every tool has a little picture that shows what you're going to do with it. It says well, that's a surface, and you're going to pull it out, and that's just a tool. It doesn't have it has a name, but that's all you have to do is look at it and see oh, there's an arrow, and it pulls the side of this object out, or oh, this one lets me draw a square. Everything is very well explained. And in this, the simplicity kind of creates obfuscation.
Okay. Well, and that's what I've seen some questions come through here about this on YouTube. Lori, I don't know how to say your name, so I'm just going to pretend that it's Lori, said, how would it work out for a beginner? Somebody who has no experience on any of these other programs. You're saying the beginner side of it is actually
I'll talk about that because I don't have experience with SketchUp.
Yeah.
And I started using it, and I pretty much immediately wanted to stop using it because it just was frustrating to work with. I didn't understand how the camera worked.
Yeah.
That was my first problem because
Did you take a tutorial or you just jumped right into it?
There wasn't a tutorial thing.
And
the answer, as Brad said, is that the camera, either you have to edit from a front-on view for some reason, and then otherwise you can go look around later. And that seemed really weird, and I couldn't figure out for a while if that was how it really was, or if I was just being, obtuse and didn't understand the program. And another thing that immediately threw me off was the whole thing where attaching. How you paint on the models, you can paint on the models. You can also add stickers. So I wanted to make a cat, right? There's a cat model, so I made the cat model, and that was automatic. And then I was I want to put some eyes on it, right? So I put the eye on it, and it's I didn't get it quite right the first time. I got to adjust it a little bit. And I'm wait, how do I adjust it? And the answer appeared to be, you don't. You undo it and you do it again.
Okay.
And I was what? Why? I don't. And again, that was something where I was am I not using the program right, or is this really how it works? I don't understand. This doesn't make any sense to me. Why can't I just touch it and move it?
Yeah.
That's especially since I was using the pen on a Microsoft Surface tablet to do this. I used the pen to put the little eye sticker there. And I was oh, well, I'll just use the pen to select it and move it. It didn't work.
Pick it up and move it along. Yeah.
And so I found it very confusing. And I did not like it. I was. I did not like it.
To put it delicately, I did not like it.
So it was pretty disappointing.
That's too bad.
I do think if you're trying to get into it, if you're trying to learn about 3D modeling, SketchUp, it's free. It works really, really well. It has a high feature support. You can totally use that for a lot of things that are really complicated. And it's really, I wouldn't say it's self-explanatory, but it's a very intuitive program. You can see the way they lay out the world with the XYZ axis are very visible, so you can kind of turn and see things. And like I said, all the tools are these little square icons that have an image, and you can tell exactly when you look at it what that's going to do.
So SketchUp, which is an open source program.
It is. I think it used to be owned by Google, but I don't believe it is anymore. I could be wrong about that.
And Brad, let's also talk about 3D printing, because that's one of their pitches. The big pitches with Paint is
so
the idea
it's
that
supposed
you can
to render.
It's well, you have Paint 3D, and with Windows 10, you can use Paint 3D, and you can just go and you can print that. it was pitched as sort of this streamlined sort of thing where you can just make your 3D models,
which would be really cool because that's one of the pains of a 3D printer is coming up with a file to do that. If you could just draw something and it prints it, that'd be great.
Sure.
But I'm gonna guess it doesn't work that way.
Well, yeah. So part of it comes back to this thing of this limited tool set that if you, and I forgot to bring it, but if you draw something in Paint 3D, you have no way of knowing whether the sides are equal or like all of the things about scale and size and rotation aren't exact.
Yeah.
Which is something that again in SketchUp is really easy because you can literally say I want this to be half an inch thick and type 0.5 inches and it just boom, it goes. Yeah. So in this, you really have to eyeball things, which is not good for 3D printing because 3D printing is a very, very precise thing to do, especially with the sort of printers that people have at home, which work, they're called fused deposition modeling, and they make, they melt a plastic into a goo, and then they sort of do layer on top of layer on top of layer.
Yeah, it's not something you'd want to eyeball. I mean, if you're going to print it, you want it right.
You want it exactly, yeah. And the other thing is that you can't print a really sharp overhang on an object because the plastic is just going to fall off the sides into a pile. So you have to be really careful when you're actually building these models that they're built in such a way that you can build supports for them or you can print them sort of in pieces so that they have flat sides with incoming edges and no big overhangs.
Gotcha.
None of these are things that you can take account of in Paint.
Yeah.
Instead, and a big part of this comes down to file type. So normally when you're 3D printing something, you use a .stl or .obj file.
Okay.
And the thing about these files is they're very simple. They're just a mesh, as they say. It's literally shape data. There's no colors, there's no texturing, unless it's built into the shape itself. It's just an object in space.
Okay.
Typically with a size associated with it. And then you use a program called a slicer, which takes your 3D printer's size and specifications into account and creates the literal commands that say, move the printer head here, extrude filament here, stop extruding, move here.
Gotcha.
And instead, Paint 3D exports in what's called a .3mf file, which is a massive file. I mean, they're not file-wise, but it just contains all sorts of data for colors and texturing and
encompassing it all into one instead of these separate.
Which is nice for Paint 3D because you can paint and put stickers on stuff, and then you can save it. And when you reopen it, all that paint stuff, the stickers, they're all there still. Mm-hmm. It remembers everything that has to do with that. 3D slicing programs don't deal with that file nearly as well. So you have we use Cura for our printers, and it works really well normally, but it doesn't really know how to deal with these files, and it sort of creates individual pieces out of them and sort of stacks them off the build plate, and you have to manually, I think I printed out this Triforce that's supposed to be
the poor wonky Triforce.
It's awkwardly shifted. Yeah, and I had to take each piece and realign them on the print bed so that they overlapped because they had all been separated, and they were sized up 8,000 times in order to get to that size.
I mean, in theory, wouldn't that sounds like it would be an easier thing that you could just design and export one file, but clearly that's not going to work out.
And I think,
and is that just because the 3D printers aren't up to that capability yet? Are they designing ahead of themselves?
So the ones that people have in their homes are, and the one they showed in the video are fused filament. They're typically 1 or 2 color printers, and they use 1 or 2 different types of material. They also have much more advanced printers for commercial use that use crazy advanced techniques that allow them to do full color high definition prints. And because you can upload straight from Paint 3D to this Remix 3D store that Microsoft has built, I think the idea is that eventually that'll be hooked into all of these services. So you can design whatever you want in Paint 3D, put crazy stickers all over it, and have it weird edges and stuff.
It's like
and
you
just
might
hit a button and pay
not
$15.
remember, but Apple a few years ago came out with a service where you could make photo books and then send them to a printer directly from their app. And you could print out the photo book, and you would get literally a book of your trip to wherever. Yeah. A couple weeks later. Yeah. And I think that there's sort of maybe an idea they're doing the same thing with 3D printing here, but
it's not quite ready.
It's not ready yet.
Yeah.
And certainly that's not it's not something you're going to be able to do at home anytime soon.
Okay.
So
I mean, that thinking forward to the future, if they do come up with something like that's actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, if it gets to that point, but it's not there yet.
Yeah.
So, and this is one more thing with Paint 3D that we're talking about here. Any other thing you want to add?
I was just going to say that, and that's only going to work still for artistic stuff.
Okay.
You made a little sculpture and you printed it out. Things that require precise edges, precise lines.
Yeah,
it's still not going to go.
Yeah, if
because
you're trying to
it's not
make a
gonna
tool or something,
Right.
and it needs to be just
Make a replacement
I know
parts or-
people
Yeah.
like to make replacement parts for like appliances or something, and then that has to be like a very specific size. Or you want to make a bracket for your GoPro, that's to be a very specific size. That's not something you can do in Paint 3D.
Gotcha.
So yeah, it's kind of it's a very limited application.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Okay, so again, just if you're watching live, we're going over the Microsoft Creators Update and everything that's come out with it. So we've talked about Edge so far, Microsoft Edge, Game Mode, Paint 3D, and everything that's associated with that. Now we've got a couple other things that we wanted to bring up too, the interface tweaks. So there are some updates on that they added in there. Right? Do you want to talk about those?
And I think it's funny because these are probably some of the actual better things in the Creators Update.
Functionality, like things you can actually use right away.
Mm-hmm. And I think one of the big ones I think is nightlight. A lot of phones have started adding this feature. A lot of people use like Flux. And
Max just got it too.
Max just got it.
They call it Night Shift.
Night Shift.
Yeah.
The idea is that there's this thought that blue light after a certain time sort of affects our sleep cycle, and that you're better off cutting out blue light as you get later into the evening because it'll help you sleep. And I don't know whether it's true or not. It's definitely easier on the eyes. I've noticed because I've been using Flux for quite some time, and now it's just built in, so you can set a time and say, hey, adjust my white balance at this time to make it, less blue and into the evening,
help with your sleep cycle and all of that.
It's nice to have it built in. It's not as full featured as some of the other ones.
There's dark mode for Edge to go with the rest of the operating system now,
and
so you can go full dark mode.
It's sweet.
Which that's sort of those funny little features that I think a lot of people appreciate. Greg, do you know what this is? It looks like
no dark mode. So I use a blue filter. I use that stuff on my phone, but
dark mode is basically changing the interface settings so that all the menus and stuff are rendered with basically dark background rather than a bright background, which is very handy, especially later at night. So your screen's not basically blazing at you.
Okay.
A bunch of light you don't really need to see things.
I thought they had something like that already, but I clearly I'm wrong.
They had it for Windows 10 last update. I think it was last update, the Windows Anniversary update. I think that's when Windows 10 overall got it. But they now have it for Edge 2, so it all syncs together nicely.
Okay. A few more apps, like the Photos app. I think.
Yeah. Other apps will also get in on that too when you go to dark mode. Speaking of which, there's been various tweaks to apps. Microsoft is very proud that you can now draw on your maps. So if you use the Windows 10 maps feature. Yeah. Well, they showed I want to take a trip, and I want to take a trip around this lake. I want to walk around this lake, so now I can draw around the lake where I'm going to walk, and it'll tell me how far it is and all this stuff. And that's cool. It's not something a lot of people are going to use, but it's cool. Probably something more people use is you can now personalize your color to any color you want, within the general RGB spectrum, as opposed to 12 or so colors that Microsoft has selected for you. So you now have a lot more room for expression with your Windows 10 desktop.
All right, well, that's good. So if I want salmon, I can pick salmon.
Yeah.
You can
my color of salmon.
Whatever color of salmon that you feel best suits you, you can pick.
My personal salmon.
You can even go in there and have it pick a color for you based
on
your background.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, this is
up.
obviously a huge technological breakthrough that we have here. All right, so that's talking about the interface tweaks. Again, going through Windows 10 Creators Update. And what we've seen so far, it's going to be rolling out to everybody slowly, I think starting on April 11th. We got one more thing that we need to get to here. And as we're broadcasting live, if you have any questions, go ahead and drop those in there. The holograms.
Where are the holograms?
We were promised holograms, I believe, by Windows. And where are said holograms?
Well, if you want some holograms, just don't sleep tonight. That's the only way you're going to get them because they're not here. Unless you either have to not sleep tonight, just wait a while, or spend $3,000 on a HoloLens. Those are your options. Otherwise, no holograms for you, sir.
Why? Why are there no holograms?
I
demand answers, Matt.
It's one of the things about Microsoft's whole update cycle thing now is they have these bigger updates now but they're still happening like every 8 months or so. Seems to be the time frame. So they're marketing, like they want to market them. They want to get something that you're going to be excited about. So for the creators update, you know, they decided that it would be like holograms and Paint 3D, and sort of the idea that not only could you 3D print things, but you could make models that you could view in like a Windows holographic. Well, actually, they call it Windows. This is the confusing thing about Microsoft. Now it's called Windows Mixed Reality officially, apparently.
Okay.
Windows Mixed Reality display. That might be a HoloLens. Or they also talked about these less expensive VR, AR headsets that would be more like a traditional like Rift or something.
Okay.
That would be coming out from Lenovo and I think HP and Acer and some others. Acer was definitely one of them because they have dev kits out now. So, yeah, that was the idea. You would be able to sort of enter this Windows mixed reality ecosystem, and it's not, I mean, like...
It's just not there.
It's just not really there. I mean, it's not there not because it's not supported or because they haven't delivered an API, but because there's just no hardware.
Yeah.
I looked a little bit, and, you know, you can find, like, bits and pieces in the creators update of, like, mixed reality stuff and setup programs. And that's been true for a while on the Windows Insider builds, but there's just nothing really that you're going to use it with that's new. There's certainly HoloLens is still way too expensive for anyone to consider buying.
Yeah, and you still need to be approved.
And you still need to be approved.
You still need to be approved.
So you can't even go get one if you want.
If you had $3,000 lying around, you wouldn't be able to just buy one.
There you go. And so, in those mixed reality headsets that were shown at the Windows 10 Creators Update reveal event, you can't buy them yet, and there's no release date for them yet. They're supposed to come out this summer, I guess, but yeah, they're not there.
So we don't know when we're going to get our holograms.
So, they said there might be support for the Vive. There was sort of like murmurs of that the Vive was going to get mixed reality support, Windows mixed reality support. We have a Vive, and I haven't been able to see any sort of way to actually use that, with any sort of Windows mixed reality stuff.
Yeah, it's still very much up in the air, and this is something that's really starting to get kind of like quite annoying, I guess.
Yeah.
Because I've used a HoloLens several times myself. I've been at quite a few of these Microsoft events, and HoloLens, I mean, it's really cool to use. It has a really cool, way of interacting with it. The holograms look very real. But it's not like this is new anymore. Like, it's been, it's been at least a year and a half since we first saw the HoloLens. It might be getting on 2 years, because I think it was a 2015 build sort of thing when the HoloLens really started being shown to the press. And now they're saying that the next HoloLens, the one you might actually be able to buy, the version 3, is going to come out in 2019. It's the latest rumors. I guess Microsoft's not saying that. I don't think it's the rumor mill has been that's been delayed to that time frame.
That's a waste.
And at this point, it's just kind of getting to the point where it's like it's not really like that revolutionary anymore. And I don't know, Microsoft needs to start delivering on some of this stuff or not show it so much, because they keep building up this hype and not really delivering, and that I think is really getting people jaded to it. At this point, it's like, oh, Microsoft is showing us another HoloLens thing. Yay! Yeah. We're never going to be able to use it, are we, Microsoft? So yeah. It really
they got me with all those commercials, the Seahawks commercials. I was all excited about that.
What were the Seahawks?
It wasn't Seahawks necessarily, but that's who they featured, showing everybody watching the football game, and then you pull up Russell Wilson's right next to you, and then they change all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, oh, sweet. Oh, it's never gonna happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's only so much hype that folks can take, right?
Mm-hmm.
Eventually you just start to tune it out, and I think we're definitely getting to the tune out point.
All right. Well, so holograms, don't expect those anytime soon, especially with the Windows 10 Creators Update. You're not going to be getting them. So it starts rolling out April 11th. For everybody, you'll slowly be getting this, as Matt said, whether you like it or not.
Yep, eventually, like it or not, unless you just go yank your Ethernet port and never get back on the internet.
That's your only option to avoid
those are your choices. Do you want the internet, or do you want a life free with the Creators Update? Which, to be clear, there's not any reason you shouldn't get it.
Yeah.
It's free. It has some nice things. That's this whole Windows 10. Whether or not the Creators Update is good is as much becoming sort of a marketing problem for Microsoft as anything else.
Yeah.
Because it must be said that Microsoft is beating Mac OS at the update game by a long shot. They are updating on an 8-month schedule, and the updates are about as substantial as the latest Mac OS updates have been. And Mac OS is usually on a year update schedule. So, you can do the math on that and see why Microsoft ends up coming out ahead. But, the problem is that they have these like updates that are kind of big, but not really that big. And Microsoft is like trying to figure out how to get people excited about them. And I think they're just overpromising. Yeah. They're treating them almost as if it was like you were going out and buying a new version of Windows, like that sort of fanfare. And they're not quite that substantial. So it ends up feeling like a little bit of a letdown, and the features are just kind of like, okay, that's nice.
Yeah. Neat. Yeah. But it's not going to wow you. It's kind of what we're talking about here. Well, all right. Well, we're pretty much out of time, but there's some great articles at digitaltrends.com too about this update, and let us know what you think as you get it. Maybe you're one of the Windows insiders that already has it. Let us know your thoughts on it, or as it starts rolling out, come back and update this and leave your comments about all of these things that we've been talking about with the Windows 10 Creators Update. We'd love to hear from you on that. You can also email anytime, podcast@digitaltrends.com, and we have an audio version of this show. Subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher or however you get your podcasts. Just subscribe there, and then that way you get the audio version right when it comes out. And you can always watch the live video and join us, which is a ton of fun, on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Pacific time for Close to the Metal right here. So thanks so much for joining. We'll be back next week with another episode.